I have a question for you. Would it be easier for you to do the move abroad journey if you could pick up your whole entire family and move abroad? Let's say you can bring your parents who are perhaps aging and your children along with you on the journey. Would that make your decision easier? Please let me know in the comment section. I asked this question because I believe moving abroad is the cheat code to intergenerational wealth. You may be asking how that could be, and I'll get into that in this video. So there's several reasons why I hypothesize that this is the cheat code to building wealth. One, housing is relatively less expensive than it is in the United States. Housing in, let's say, even Asian countries, Latin American countries, Central American countries is significantly less costly than it is to acquire in the US. Two, the houses are built to sustain intergenerational families, meaning grandparents, the parents, and the children. So it's set up to support an entire ecosystem of several people living in the home. And when several people are living in the home, they're able to pool resources together, and they have more resources, more disposable income amongst them and between them. We see this example there was a story portraying 7 Chinese friends who purchased a property as their retirement property. They were able to pool $584,000 that went into purchasing the property and the renovation of the property, and they call it their retirement home. And they all live in the home together. And they designed it to accommodate all of their needs and the things that they desire. And it's almost like a dream home for all of them. So the property is about 7,535 square feet. It's in the suburbs of Guangzhou, a major city in southeastern China near Hong Kong. They pooled, again, $584,000 between the 7 of them to both buy the property and completely renovate it. It was originally a dilapidated red brick house an hour outside of the Chinese village. Now it's a beautiful light-filled glass exterior, and it's a complete showstopper. They knew each other for at least 20 years, and they decided, hey, we should think about a retirement plan together and pool our resources and buy something so that we can each take care of each other as we age. The house is 3.5-story estate surrounded by paddy fields. It features shared space on the ground floor and individual bedrooms for each of the ladies to enjoy. It also has tatami mats for group hangouts. They have a long dining room table that's part of the communal space for them all to gather and share meals together. Outside there's a swimming pool, a tea pavilion connected via a bamboo walkway. When I say it's a showstopper, it's absolutely exquisite. Not only do they have the functionality of a home, they also have the community, the relational that they get to experience, and no one will ever be lonely or alone, or no one will ever have to, if they lose their job, wonder if they're going to end up destitute, because the resources are pulled together. Or even so, if illness befalls any one of them, they know that there's 6 other people to take care of them. And isn't that all what we want in life, is relationships? That is the thing that we crave as human beings, is relationships. And relationships is a testament to health. We hear it all the time, like loneliness is the next smoking. That the loneliness epidemic is really, really causing people to struggle, especially in Western countries. And so these women have pretty much served a practical goal of housing, an economic goal of pooling resources together, and a relational goal of having community. Now, if we look at the United States, US is good for making money. Like, if you want to know how to make money, live in the US, work in the US. But in terms of community, they're not the top. That's not a top priority in the US. So which is why this move abroad journey is catching so much momentum with people who are retired, who made their money, raised their families, and now want community, want things that essentially the global south still has while maintaining like economic strength. These countries have found a way to reconcile having a robust and vibrant economy while still not forfeiting family and relational values. We can also look at Thailand. Thailand is also very well known for having multi-generational homes. I mean, you should see these structures, they're exquisite. And it's for many people to be able to live there. Several generations, grandparents, the parents, and the children, perhaps great-grandparents. No one will be without a home. And again, with this model, resources are pooled together.
เพราะว่าด้วยแผนของบ้านนะครับบ้านจะเป็นเครื่องหมายบวกเพราะว่าเราบวกความสุขของเราขึ้นมาเพราะบ้านเนี้ยชื่อบ้านของบ้านเนี่ยคือชื่อบ้านดลสุขดลที่แปลว่าทำให้สุขก็มีความสุขคือทำให้เกิดความสุข plus ก็คือทำให้เกิดความสุขมากขึ้นที่เราอาศัย3 generation เนี่ยเพราะว่าส่วนหนึ่งเราเป็นครอบครัวไทยจีนซึ่งเราอาศัยอยู่เป็นครอบครัวใหญ่เป็น culture ของเขานั่นแหละแล้วก็ข้อดีมันคือพ่อแม่ของเราสามารถถ่ายทอดความรู้ให้ลูกหลานของเราได้แล้วมันก็เป็นการปลูกฝังอย่างหนึ่งให้กับลูกหลานเราคือครอบครัวเรามันไม่ใช่มีแค่พ่อแม่กับลูกตอนแรกที่ชวนทุกคนเข้ามาอยู่ด้วยกันเนี่ยผมก็คิดเหมือนกันว่าจะครอบครัว2ครอบครัวที่ไม่เคยเจอกันภรรยาผมกับครอบครัวผมจะเข้ากันได้ไหมแต่คิดว่าเราน่าจะปรับตัวเข้าหากันได้ก็เลยให้โจทย์กับทางดีไซเนอร์ว่าเราขอ separate private section เป็น semi private บางส่วนเพื่อที่จะเราสามารถอยู่ด้วยกันได้แล้วก็มี space ส่วนตัวกันได้เราจะได้ไม่มีการขัดแย้งกัน
But if we look at homes in the US, they're not typically constructed to sustain multi-generational living. Just something for you to think about. They are structured and built for nuclear households, 2 parents and their children, not necessarily for several generations to occupy the same home. However, with more immigrant communities buying real estate over the last 40 and 50 years, we see an increase in expansion of single-family dwellings to now be able to accommodate larger members of family. So there's something to take note of that there is a movement happening among the immigrant community in the US that's paying attention to, no, we're still going to have our values of multi-generational living, and we're going to reconstruct, we're going to lobby, we're going to go to city planning and submit whatever documentation to accommodate our families. So now that we understand how certain societies have constructed properties to be multi-generational, we can also look at the cost to see if there's a comparison. Are these homes more expensive than they would be in the US? And typically no, unless it's a more luxurious house, of course. But for the most part, like a 5 or 6 bedroom house in Thailand, for instance, is still around $130,000. Many Americans can afford that. In Italy, I'm sure many of you have heard of the €1 program, where you could buy a house in Italy for €1, but with closing costs, it can amount to be around $10,000. A lot of the homes in Italy are built to sustain multi-generational living. So whether you pay €1 for it and you have to completely renovate it, typically the €1 homes need a complete gut renovation, or you buy a house that's say $20,000 or $30,000, 20 to 30,000 euros, it's still able to accommodate several people living in the house and not necessarily the nuclear family. Italy is ubiquitous for having family and communal values, similar to Asia. Many of you are aware that I also purchased a house in Italy a few weeks ago. I will link the video regarding that. At the forefront of my mind, I was considering my aging parents. Is this home handicap accessible? Are there stairs? Are there bathrooms where we would be able to install like mobility devices and things like that? That was a priority. And I remember asking realtors like, no, I need a property that has stairs because my mother struggles with stairs. So that was a priority in my purchase. I come from an immigrant background, so living intergenerationally is a no-brainer for me. But for other people who are still grappling with the idea, this is why I do this video. Another thing to consider why moving abroad is the cheat code to intergenerational wealth is the cost of healthcare. I have done several videos about the cost of healthcare in the US and that the US is experiencing a healthcare crisis. Whereas in other countries, there's universal healthcare. So residents and expats pay significantly less to access adequate healthcare compared to their US counterparts. It is really a gamble, despite how wealthy an American may be, in terms of whether or not they're able to access healthcare. At this point, it's not a shoo-in that because you're wealthy that you can get access to the best doctors and the best hospital. Right now, we are seeing that inequity, that impoverished community experience being leveled out, and we're now seeing people with economic means not being able to even access these basic services in healthcare. Whereas in other countries that are in the global south, healthcare is a given. Healthcare is a human right. Even if a person has to pay a little more for private health insurance, the basic needs are met. Let's take Colombia, for example. Colombia is part of the global south. The exchange rate, just to give you an idea, of $1 to Colombian pesos is about 4,000 Colombian pesos to $1. So extreme inequity compared to the US. However, 97% of Colombians have access to healthcare. Colombia is ranked number 18 in the world when it comes to healthcare. So despite the different economic power of the US to Colombia, Colombia has managed to still afford 97% of its citizens access to healthcare. And the small 3%, you may be wondering why not 100%, small 3% has to do with the indigenous communities that live in remote areas. And so they may rely on traditional medicine and they may not speak Spanish and they live remotely and not have access to hospitals and clinics that are readily available in more urban and developed areas. And so to counteract that, Colombia, the healthcare paradigms have set up programs to visit these remote areas to ensure that these indigenous communities are aware, listen, if you need more robust healthcare, if you need more robust intervention, you can visit a clinic or a hospital to get attention from a doctor. That is how they are alleviating the gap of those who don't have and those who have access to it. Education. Education is another feature in the US that siphons off tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars from many Americans to be able to access just a basic bachelor's degree. Whereas, let's say in Europe, many public universities are free. In France, public universities may charge around 2,500 euros per year. In Germany, tuition is free at all public universities for international students. In Italy, for example, public universities may be as low as 900 euros to 4,000 euros per year, depending on the institution and the program of study. While, of course, private universities may be costly, but there's a market for most people to be able to afford education in Europe. Whereas in the US, we may say, well, community colleges is the avenue, but it's still costly. It's not as readily available as it is in Europe. And let's just face it, community colleges are seen as not as prestigious of a college or university to attend compared to the private university. In Europe, there's an understanding that education is valued. Where in the US, education is valued, but it's not accessible to everyone. Whereas in Europe, it's a priority that it is. So we went through healthcare, we went through education, and we went through housing as the biggest siphons of Americans' finances as to why it may make it difficult to acquire generational wealth. However, as this move abroad journey picks up more and more momentum, the joke is you made the money, now it's time to go. Leaving America perhaps is the cheat code to having wealth and having comfort. As we consider these three elements that are really costing Americans, and we didn't even get into other basic things such as food, the cost of food, and the rising cost of basic amenities for Americans, how that's also siphoning a lot of Americans' prowess, economic prowess. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you believe living intergenerationally is the cheat code to building wealth? We see immigrant communities doing it all the time, and we see how successful they are in terms of sustaining their family values and being able to have more economic prowess to buy real estate. Also, let me know your thoughts of moving your family abroad. Would that make the move abroad journey easier for you if you could pick up your entire family and move them abroad? If you have any questions, I do have a move abroad course. So if you wish to come into my coaching container to walk through the steps that you need to be thinking about for your move abroad journey. Again, we touched on some of the topics in this video as to healthcare, what it would look like for you to access the universal health care in that country. What do you do with your Medicare in the US or your Medicaid? How to relocate your parents. What does that look like? Finding nursing home facilities for them if they need to. Also your children, what the education system looks like for them if they were to relocate. So in my program, we iron out all the things that may be particular to you that's challenging you regarding your moving abroad. There's also individual consultations if you want to meet with me just to know where to begin. We could do that too. The link for those will be in the description box. Let me know your thoughts about moving your family abroad, intergenerational life, intergenerational real estate, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.